40inbox.com here. So we're going to be checking out an article called "Can You Retire a Millionaire with ETFs Alone?" And the reason why we're going to cover this is because we really talk a lot that personal finance does not have to be complicated. Like, it's actually a very simple way to go about in doing it, to where the less you make it complicated, the better off financially you'll end up typically being. So let's get right into it. So ETFs can be an incredibly powerful journey at many stages along your retirement journey. If you want to retire as a millionaire, you'd better get started on your journey soon. I would have to agree with that statement. So, at a savings rate ordinary people might be able to afford, is a process that's achievable, but it can take decades. Fortunately, ETFs serve as a superb investing tool that can make it easier for you to reach that target. Indeed, you can retire a millionaire with ETFs alone as long as you manage your end to end financial plan appropriately. You'll need to start early enough, invest enough money in an aggressive enough strategy, and convert some money to higher certainty choices as your retirement approaches. In many ways, in fact, ETFs can make your investing job easier as you strive to become a millionaire by retirement. So, why ETFs can help you out? Ultimately, an ETF is just a pre designed collection of investments. The key advantage of any given ETF is that it offers a one stop shop to buy multiple investments within the framework of its underlying strategy, often with low overhead costs. That lets you, as an investor, focus on the overall strategy or strategies that you're interested in following, and then let the ETFs handle the work of picking the specific investments within that strategy. So do you want to invest in the S&P 500? There are several ETFs that will let you track that index. Do you want international exposure without having to become an expert in other countries' accounting rules? There are ETFs that will help there too. Are you ready to start converting some of your assets to bonds to give your higher certainty cash flows for your retirement? There are even ETFs that can help out on that front as well. So, if you want to get the long term benefits of investing without the hassle or effort of scouring financial statements or try to separate winners from losers, ETFs can be a very powerful tool in your arsenal. So, are there any trade offs? All that said, there's still no such thing as a free lunch in investing, and ETFs are no exception to that rule. ETFs generally come with ongoing management fees that you pay every year for owning them. Still, those fees could be a bargain compared to the hassle of managing a diversified portfolio. In addition to the fees, since ETFs are frequently passively managed to match a strategy, chances are you perform somewhere in line with the average of following that strategy. You'd be less likely to wildly outperform, but at the same time, you'd be less likely to wildly trail it too. On top of that, since ETFs are simply collections of other assets, you'll need to dig into their holdings to have a clear understanding of what you own. If you want to pay attention to valuation or diversification, you'll need to investigate each of your ETFs to make sure you didn't wind up inadvertently overinvested in an asset you're not really comfortable holding. So, how long will it take you to get there? The following table shows how many years it would take to get to millionaire status starting from $0, depending on how much you can sock away each month and what rate of return you earn. As should be obvious from that table, the more you can sock away and the higher the rate of return you earn, the less time it would take for you to become a millionaire. Now, before we actually go show you this table, think of it like this, right? A lot of the times we basically say you could do something as easy if you want to be a little bit more hands off. You could probably put money into an ETF that trades the S&P 500, right? That is the S&P 500, right? Something like for an example, SPY, right? You could literally go into you could probably go to Robinhood or whatever and just check it out, right? Because if you look at the historical data of something like that, I believe the average annual return over the long time frame, like over like 10 plus years, is like close to 10 plus percent. So just keep that in mind when we're going through this chart. So there's the monthly investment of like how much you're actually going to be putting, and they're going to show different breakdowns of how long in terms of years it would take you to actually reach $1 million, right? You have the 10% annual return, 8% annual returns, 6% annual returns, and a 4% annual returns. And like I mentioned, right, SPY has practically averaged 10%, right? As like an example, right? And the reason why I want to put that out there is because there are ETFs, there are mutual funds that have an average annual return of roughly 8 plus, 10 plus percent per year, right? Nothing crazy, but much better than 4, much better than 6, and typically better than 8. So, the monthly investment of $2,833.33 for you to reach the millionaire status would take you 13.8 years, 8% return, 15.2 years, 6% return, 17 years, 4% return, 19.5, right? Like the time difference is kind of crazy when you really think about it. So, if you have the monthly investment of $2,250 per month, 15.6 at 10%, 17.3 at 8%, 19.6 years at 6%, 22.8 for 4%. So now that's 2 decades at the 4% level. Now $2,208.33, 15.7 years, 17.5 years, 19.8 years, 23.1 years. Monthly investment $1,708.33, 17.8 years for the 10%, 20 years for the 8%, 22.9 for the 6%, 27.2 for the 4%. $1,500 a month, 18.9 years for the 10%, 21.3 years for the 8%, 24.5 for the 6%, and 29.4 for the 4%. $1,000 a month, 22.5 years for the 10%, 25.6 years for the 8%, 30 years for the 6%, 36.8 years for the 4%. $500 a month, 28.9 years at 10%, 33.4 years at the 8%, 40.1 years for 6%, and 51.1 years for the 4%. And look at the craziness, right? At the $500 mark is pretty much a decade difference, roughly, when you think about it, in terms of the difference in returns. This is why you always want to try to aim for like that around that 10% annual return rate, because the compounding interest is just so massive, right? So $500 a month, you will retire a millionaire before 3 decades, before 30 years, right? Which is why we say that I always kind of like mention this, but if you were to take your car payment, if you have a car payment right now, and you just put that same amount of money instead of the car payment into like an ETF, you would retire a millionaire after a few decades without really doing much of anything, right? And this is why we push so hard for people to get out of debt, because the sooner you're out of debt, the much more money that you could start funneling into investments like this, so that it's quicker for you to become a millionaire, right? So you might just start off, once you're out of debt, only a few $100s per month going into your investments, right? But if you actually get to the point where you have no expenses, basically, because you're completely debt free, and you start raising your income level to allow you to actually start putting nearly $3,000 a month per month into your investments, you could actually probably shorten the 13.8 years by a massive amount, right? And this is also why a lot of people who end up making like really big amounts of money, like if you were to get like a massive like lump sum of money, what I would do with that money, get out of debt, and then just basically toss everything into basically a long-term investment like an ETF of SPY or something like the S&P 500 or whatever, right? Because just from the compound interest alone of that massive amount of money can pretty much set you for life, right? In terms of like retirement, which would be pretty amazing when you really think about it. So over long periods, the stock market has delivered annualized returns somewhere between the 8% and 10% levels. Though those returns are neither guaranteed nor are they smooth, that makes market tracking ETFs a wonderful tool to use over the long run to attempt to reach millionaire status. As for the monthly investment amounts in the table, those top amounts were not pulled out of thin air. They are based on maxing out 401k and IRA contributions for the year. So, in particular, $2,833.33 would max out both a 401k and an IRA for an investor age 50 or up. And the annual limits in that age bracket are $27,000 for 401k contributions and $7,000 for IRA contributions. But the main thing to really understand, which I agree with this article, is that you got to start as soon as you can. But the thing is, we really want you to be out of debt so that you could just funnel as much money as possible into your investments without really any risk to yourself, right? Because you don't want to be in a situation where you're going to have like emergencies pop up, you're in debt, you don't have any money lying around, so you have to basically pull out of investments, thus destroying the compound interest that you're getting. So we always want people to get out of debt first and then start funneling massive amounts of money into your investments. That's what we always try to aim for. If you want to learn how to get out of debt, go to 40inbox.com.